This video was released 3 days early for supporters on Patreon. It's been a while. Let's see what we've been up to. Hey there, I'm Aki and the Hydra shard is finally out, but it took a long time to get there. So before I show you our plans for the Hydra in the future, let's talk about what we've been up to and why the Hydra took so long. Our original plan was to release an early version of the Hydra as a shard in April. Yeah, that didn't quite work. When the trailer was finished, the interior model wasn't actually done yet. We had just used the Cyclops interior, since in the trailer you wouldn't really see it anyways. So we first had to design and model that, and then also decided on redoing the pilot chair. In the trailer, the model was quite basic, and I think the new one does fit the Hydra a lot better. We even had some custom animations for the movement of the chair as well, but I'll get back to that in just a second. Not only this, but we also had to design the interface for the upgrade screen and implement that entire thing, from rough sketches to a first draft and then the finished UI. This took up quite a lot of time obviously, but so far we're all within our reasonable expectations. I even made animated examples for our modders for the upgrade screen to figure out how some of the animations could look. And of course, the pilot UI. In the trailer it was just a rushed modification to the Cyclops UI, and here we took some time to make sure the final version would work for the Hydra and look good too. And I made an animated example for this too. But here is about when the problem started. Getting the textures on the submarine to look right was nigh impossible. Basically, textures in games work like this. You have a glossiness texture that determines how reflective something is, an emissive texture that determines if something glows or not, a normal texture that adds details and curves, and a color map, which is self-explanatory. But in Subnautica, you also have a specular map, and those cause issues. Essentially, they determine what color reflections have and how shiny they are. But the way Subnautica uses them is really weird. I have a suspicion that the devs use specular maps to simulate light scattering in organic surfaces like skin, but no clue how they got the maps themselves. We couldn't figure out a way to create them with normal methods. So after weeks of trial and error, we resorted to creating them manually by editing the other maps. That's because as far as I know, specular maps should only be colored if the surface is metal. But Subnautica has a bunch of them on non-metal surfaces. And if we just left it out, it wouldn't look right at all. Now, the manually edited maps aren't perfect, of course, but probably the best we'll get. Oh, right, and the glossy maps also don't even work properly. The reflections are completely off, and we basically just have one reflective value instead of being able to determine where it's reflective and where it isn't. But maybe we'll get that to work eventually, hopefully. Editing Aki here with a little update. No, we definitely won't get that to work eventually. We did a big test where we had different values of glossiness on different faces and put them into Unity. And I thought, hey, awesome, this looks the same as in my texturing software. And then we put it in game. This is what it looks like in game. What? I'm at a loss. If anyone has any clue how Subnautica handles glossiness and why it just does not seem to work, please let me know. There's also some weird behavior with the ambient occlusion settings in-game, causing dark stripes on the inside of the sub. But as it turns out, that also happens to the Cyclops. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to fix that. And of course, we had to come up with voice lines for the submarine too. In the trailer, we had someone voice act the submarine.
Current location, dead zone.
But that would get extremely expensive for the full mod. So here, we use a TTS voice and edit it ourselves, and I think it sounds great.
Subscribe and share the video to support the mod.
And finally, after months of work, we thought we were finally almost ready. We only had to implement a few animations for the elevators and the chair. Surely that wouldn't take so long. Right? The animations looked great in Blender, but once we imported them, everything went wrong. This is an issue we still haven't completely figured out. For example, the bed animation looks great in Blender, but what is this? But without getting into technical details, when we export Blender animations and put them into the game, they are suddenly all over the place. Not just the game, This happens in every other 3D software. And in every software, it is wrong slightly differently. I'm sure we'll figure this out in the final version, but for the chart, we had to roughly animate things like the bed and chair manually in Unity. Which is a shame, since we really had some cool animations for the pilot seat ready to go, as you can see here. This issue is also what's causing the weird perspective issues when piloting the Hydra in ACM mode, because the chair doesn't actually properly rotate yet. And the cherry on top is that fixing most of these things required us to change the model. And that meant our modders would have to completely reset up the model in Unity. Animations, textures, sound effects, everything. And that's what took up the most time. We have now found a way to do this more easily and quickly, but this back and forth process easily cost us a couple of months. And since I'm the one who made the Hydra model and animations, that's kind of on me. Sorry. But after all that, we finally got a final testing build. And that was our second big error, by the way. We didn't push up testing builds for the team nearly often enough, so besides the modders, nobody could frequently test the sub in-game. In this final build, we found a huge list of bugs and errors we had to fix before we could reasonably release it. These bugs reached from materials not looking correct or text being misplaced to sound effects missing and even the ACM mode on the Hydra completely misbehaving. In this build, if you rotated your hull and then tried to look down, your submarine would rotate to the right. Yeah. There's also this weird issue we still haven't figured out, where the intro plays at like 1 FPS for me with completely missing sounds, but works fine for literally everyone else. Yeah, no clue what that's about, but maybe we'll figure this out eventually. But yeah, after another few weeks to fix these bugs, we finally finished it. If you want to give feedback or share your ideas for Call of the Void, you can also check out my Discord server in the description down below, where I will also be giving away a bunch of free games for Christmas, so come say hi. All this helped us learn a lot on how to avoid this and be more efficient in the future, so hopefully a massive delay like this doesn't happen again. And since the Hydra came out, we already got a bunch of feedback on it, so here's what we're gonna change. Or add. But first, if you want to support the mod and get some delicious gamer subs in the process, you can use the code AKI at checkout for 10% off your order, or use the first link in the description. They have a ton of flavors, but I can highly recommend the Blowhole Blast and Anime Girl Thighs flavors. They're delicious. The main thing we'll do to the Hydra in the future is bug fixing, obviously. You guys reported plenty of bugs and we have a whole list for ourselves too. Next, we'll be fixing our animation issues and taking another look at ACM mode to hopefully make it feel a bit more intuitive. The main thing here would be to center the player in the front of the submarine, so you actually rotate around the submarine's axis, because currently you're actually offset to the top, which makes it quite hard to tell where you rotated, and also sometimes makes the submarine behave in ways that we didn't really intend. Then of course, we'll be implementing the sonar that you can use to discover the void islands and anomalies to improve your Hydra's AI. This is a very important part of the mod, since this is your main way to progress through the void clusters, and we need to make sure it feels right. While that should hopefully not be too complex, actually implementing the skill tree and perks for your AI is another story. We already have all perks planned and concepted, but of course implementing and testing them to make sure they're balanced properly is going to take some time. I already told you about some of our ideas for perks in the original Hydra deep dive, so you can check that out if you haven't. But I think I can tell you about some more here. So how about I give you a sneak peek? Oxygen propulsion lets you expel oxygen from the engine to greatly increase your speed, while the regeneration frame passively regenerates hull health over time. All of these skills will have upgrades to improve their functionality, and some of them even have specializations, so you can focus on one aspect while maybe nerfing another. We're also overhauling the skill tree visuals themselves. This was the first idea for the skill tree, but it just didn't feel right. So now we're changing it up a tiny bit, and I don't want to spoil too much here, but I hope you'll like the new version better. What I will spoil is the texture rework for the Hydra. I've been working on making the textures a bit more high quality, and I've also changed up some of them, as you can see here. This is still work in progress, but I think it's coming along nicely. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below. And lastly, we will of course implement things based on your feedback. Lots of people wanted faster elevators, for example, so we will speed those up. We'll also make it easier to build stuff in the main cabin and fix up the custom colors so you can customize the Hydra like you want to. Of course, the Hydra isn't the only thing that we've been working on though. We've got some progress on the first Precursor base as well, where we've decided on a layout, some of the puzzles, and have a first blocker done in 3D. That blockout is currently being detailed, but what you see here is just a very rough first draft. And of course, a Precursor base needs a Guardian. So we'll get started on the Spider Guardian soon. We were also contacted by a really talented artist wanting to help out the team. Wretched Sun offered to create some concepts for us, and they've done a phenomenal job. These, for example, are screech rooms, which expand and emit a high-pitched screech to ward off any creatures that might try to eat them. So, don't get too close. Here's also a creature concept that we won't be using, but that was just way too cool not to show off. All those tendrils and that beak, perfect. Just didn't quite fit what we would have wanted it for. You can check out the art and follow them on ArtStation to support them. They have some great stuff on there. Link is in the description. Alright, and we also kind of made the first ever custom base piece in Subnautica. Now, whenever I say that, people bring up the Cyclops dock mod, but that one just uses an existing base piece and repurposes it for the docking thing. We actually have a completely custom model for the Hydra dock that is currently placeable in-game. This is where you'll upgrade, repair, and restock your Hydra, and I'm really happy with how it's come out. There's lots of work to still be done for it to properly work, but getting it in game like this is already a huge milestone. And then of course, there were the soundtracks. Our sound designers did an absolutely amazing job on the abandoned ship and creature attack tracks, and I really hope you liked them. If you haven't heard them yet, check them out in the top right. We have also been working on new and exciting biome concepts, but since I don't want to spoil too much, you'll just get a sneak peek here. For these biomes, we've also been creating plant and creature models, of course. Here's a sneak peek at a plant for the bluegrass fields that grows a new food source. And here we have a work in progress model of a new crab creature. Maybe some of you might recognize this one. And last but not least, we've been working on the layout of clusters and islands in the Void. Fun fact about this, it is really hard to judge distances here. I thought these were way too close, but it turns out taking a Seamoth from one island to another takes almost a minute. The island sizes are also quite deceiving, and you only really realize how big they are once you go into first person and swim around on them. And while these are obviously placeholders, we finally figured out a way to properly do islands. Void Editor sadly didn't work out, but this new approach is really promising, and we just need to squish a few rendering bugs before we're able to start implementing them. That being said, check out my video on the Hydra and leave a like and comment to support the mod. But for now, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Goodbye!